Hey, what's up? Good morning, everybody. Listen, we all run into them. Roadblocks, things that stop us along the way. We have a goal. We have a direction that we're going. We have something in mind that we want to get to, and we run into these roadblocks. We are doing all the right things. We are staying consistent, and yet we run into can't quite seem to break through. Have you ever experienced this? Listen, if you have a pulse, you've probably experienced this on planet Earth. And if you're somebody that is in business, it can be frustrating. It can mean lost profit, wasted time, and just really anxiety, stress, worry, disappointment, because you know what's possible. You know where you're going. You know what direction you're going in, but you're hitting roadblocks. You're hitting plateaus. There's a quick, simple way to break free from this. But oftentimes it's the last thing that we think of that we want to do. When we think of a roadblock, when we think of a plateau, the last thing that we want to do is this thing. Take a look at, what am I doing right now? What was I doing when things were succeeding? And what do I need to change? This can be difficult because we have to admit to ourselves a hard thing. I'm not doing the right thing. What I'm doing now is not working. And there's something that I don't know that I need to learn and discover. We need to open ourselves up to the possibility of learning what we don't know. But this also means humbling ourselves enough to say, I don't know everything right now. And ultimately, there's things that we have to give up. We have to sacrifice. Now, we think about, okay, in business, I'm doing this so I don't have to sacrifice things. And many times there's a negative connotation to the word sacrifice, meaning we associate the word sacrifice with negativity, meaning, oh, I'm going to have to give up my family. I'm going to have to give up what I love. We assume that sacrifice means getting rid of what we enjoy and love. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. What I'm talking about here is giving up what's not working. Giving up what we have patterns of in our life, in our past, of doing repeatedly, that we've done for years, that we believe we can deal with later when we arrive at a certain moment in time where we have everything figured out, when everything's all successful. And yet the very thing that keeps us hitting a plateau are those things. And so we have to look at, what am I afraid to give up? What don't I want to admit is not working? What am I refusing to grow in personally? These are hard questions to ask ourselves because they become painful when we have to admit that what I thought was going to make me successful was actually harming and hindering me in the first place. And we believe that we can just ignore these things. I think right now while I'm talking about this, maybe you're thinking of some things, or you can't think of any that come to mind, and you're wondering, do I really have any? And this comes by going through the process. Taking a look at, what is my goal? What am I doing when I hit that moment, that roadblock? What am I telling myself about this? And what am I telling myself about why I can't change it? Why it's too hard? Many times this could be connected to some things. For me personally, let me just share some of these with you. Fear of being seen and known by people. Fear of people knowing everything about me and what's going on. Fear of looking bad, fear of making a mistake, believing that I can't do everything right, and not trusting the process, right? You hear me preach this kind of stuff, and yet the biggest things that were my roadblocks, I was still finding little tiny areas of my life that I was operating in these areas. Sometimes we might have breakthroughs in the past in one area, but then the new area that we're going after, maybe it's in business, maybe it's in relationship, maybe it's in finances, maybe it's in our habits, our discipline, our self-control. We are still operating in the old pattern of years ago. We're using the frameworks that were negative in these positive areas, and then we're wondering, why am I not getting any progress? Why do I keep running up against this roadblock? Because we're refusing to stop doing those unhealthy habits. Unconsciously, We don't do it on purpose, but it's a choice to not look at what are those areas and to choose to do something different. That's the choice. The lack of exploring, the lack of making a better choice becomes our unconscious decision, and that's how we end up in these loops, these roadblocks. Many times when I coach with people, we work through these. What are the unconscious things that we're doing that keep us stuck in the old patterns? And when we break through these, we can move forward. When we put things out there without it all being perfect, when we explore, why am I so worried about other people judging my choices, actions, and decisions? When we explore, why is it so difficult for me to express myself because I'm fearful that people are going to think I mean another thing, and so I don't open my mouth at all because that's a safer choice. These are some of those. These are some of them. Jimmy says, I find myself doing busy work that is not growing my business. Then when I look a little deeper, I realize I'm giving fear of, will this be good enough? Then when I realize when I realize it, I'm like, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just move forward. Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things is we believe we're so hypercritical of ourselves. This is one of the big things, so one of the biggest areas. That being critical of ourselves is a positive thing that is going to help us succeed. And many times that's what we've been taught throughout our life. Even if I come out and say that to some people, they will argue for being critical and believe that there is no possible way to be successful without being so critical. I thought this myself. We have to be willing to stop being so critical of ourselves. The word critical is harsh, abusive, negative, holding an unreasonable standard of ourselves that could never be met by any human being. That's what I'm talking about. And so when you let go of that and you become realistic, there's another word, realistic. I used to despise that word for so long. Being realistic, I thought, was a negative thing because I'm somebody that dreams big, has impossible dreams and vision. Listen, you're not going to accomplish those things in the future until you become present in this moment and look at, what can I do now? What do I know how to do? What do I need to learn? And become real with yourself to come face to face with what don't you know and what needs to change. When we can do this, we start the process of breaking through. And once we start to make decisions, choices, and actions that allow us to walk into breakthrough, everything in our life changes. And so, my friends, today, give up the belief that you can ever do everything perfect. Nobody can. Give up the belief that you can only succeed by being hypercritical and abusive in the way that you talk to yourself in your head. I used to think that this was a superpower of mine, being so critical of myself. And I realized that this is unreasonable, that it was actually hindering me from even progressing because of how critical I was of my actions, my choices. And start to love yourself. Start to accept yourself. Start to accept your limitations and learn what you need to grow in. Double down on your strengths and get help with what you're struggling with. Listen, when I coach with people, I'm able to help shore up their weaknesses by pointing out what they don't see themselves and coming alongside them to walk them through the process of growth. Walking alongside people to help them grow into what their potential is. And that's what I'd love to do with you. Listen, if you haven't yet, head on over to my website, schedule a free 15-minute call with me. Costs nothing. We can hop on the phone together, talk about what are your sticking points? What are those breakthrough points? What are those plateaus that you keep running up against? And in 15 minutes, we can talk through that and work through a plan for you to start to move forward. I can direct you to some podcast episodes. I have over 60 episodes on my podcast. Listen, you have to be intentional to get a different result. It's not going to happen by accident. It's not going to happen by just waiting until another day in the future to arrive that you finally have all the pieces together to be successful. Today is the day to make the decision to start to do something different to grow your life. We'll talk soon, everybody. Have a good one.